Hi Year 8, I'm in our OneNote here. So if you look in that today, you'll find what I'm talking through. I'm in the Timeline tab in Term 1 2024, where you should already know you will find our work for the lesson. So I'm not in today because I'm doing the Engineering Science Challenge, but there's no reason why you can't get a move on with what we're doing because we're looking at our new topic and it's called percentages. It's a recap from Year 7, so you actually don't really need me there. We're going to work fairly fast through that. We've got 3 lessons to work through that, so Monday, Thursday and Friday, and then next week we'll do a quick formative quiz on it and we'll move into our next topic after that, which will be angle relationships. So if you have a look at your OneNote, you'll find at the top there's 2 new tabs in there. There's the percentages tab that we're going to work through this week, and then next week we'll have a look at angle relationships. So today's work is going to relate to this little click here, which is a percentages workbook. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to take us through to our percentages page, okay? And it'll take us through here to the workbook. And that's what we're going to work through today. So it's a Mathletics workbook. You might have used Mathletics in primary school before. We don't use it here, but the workbooks are really great, and that's what we're going to have a look at all various different kinds of percentages. So I'm going to step you through some of those things today, and then you're going to go back and work through them by yourself or at your table or with the person next to you and get your answers. So we're going to have a look at changing percentages to fractions, fractions to percentages, percentages to decimals, and decimals to percentages. And if you're really clever, you might remember some of the other ones from the topic 5 down, but we're basically going to work through topic 1 to 4. You have done those in primary school, but what we're going to look at today is allowing you to use your calculator, because I really only care about the process to get to the answer, because we're going to use these percentages to do a lot harder questions. So I need to know that you can do that. Now, I actually already know that lots of you can do this, because when you did your formative task last week, which I will hand back to you next lesson, I saw people actually work out percentages already and work out how many percent that they ended up getting. So I think that the formative was out of 24. So I saw quite a few people get their marks. So say, for example, if it was 20 out of 24, work out what that was on their calculator and then times that by 100 to get their answer as a percentage. So if I was to work this out as a percentage on my calculator, I'd get my fraction button, which is the D over E button, and I'd pop in 20, arrow down at the top there to get to 24. And then you could either press equals, or you might straight away just go and times by 100. So either way, as long as you're getting your answer, that's 20 over 24 times 100. Mine's come up as not a particularly nice value here, but what you can do on your calculator is press this button here, which is F arrow D, which changes our fraction to a decimal, and that works out to be 83.33333, which is 83.3%. And that's what the person who got that in the test got as a percentage. So 20 out of 24 on a test is 83.3%. So I'm assuming most of you know this, which is great. So it's just going to be a little bit of revision. So let's go and have a look at topic 1. Okay, so topic 1 is looking at changing percentages to fractions. So be really careful that you're actually reading the question first. So it says express the following percentages as fractions. So we want to go to fractions, but we want them in their simplest form. So I've highlighted those 2 important words. So we want to go to fractions and then we want to make it in its simplest form. So we are going to use our calculator, and generally your calculator will do that, but I know some of you will want to do it in your head. So if you do, you'll need to pop it in your simplest form. So 50%. So percent means out of 100. So we can basically change the percent to out of 100. Those are interchangeable. So wherever you see a percent, you can remove that percent and write over 100 or out of 100. So 50% is the same as 50 out of 100. And if you pop that in your calculator using that fraction button, and I'll quickly do that. Okay, so there's my calculator there. So 50 out of 100. So maybe you want to do that now as well. And press equals. What you're going to get is 1/2. So 50% as a fraction in its simplest form is 1/2. Now I would like you to write those 2 things in there, because that's showing you're working out. And that's how you would work out all of those first ones. Okay. Question 2 looks at decimals. Now, the way you did these in primary school, you probably looked at whole numbers and fractions, but we've got calculators that will actually help us out with these ones. Okay. So again, I've got a percentage here for 2.5%. To get rid of the percent, I need to pop it over 100, but I can do this. 2.5 over 100. That is not a nice answer, okay, because it's got a decimal point in it. So you can either move the decimal point over and make it 25 on 1,000, but we have calculators that are going to deal with that. And because I really only want the process, because we're going to do harder questions, I can pop my fraction button in and I can pop in 2.5 over 100. And what that will do, it will get me a decimal. But my question, if we have a look at what it says a fraction in its simplest form. So remember that fraction to decimals button, pressing that, and it takes us back. And you keep pressing that button and it flicks between fraction and decimal, so you get it in the form that you want. So it's 1 over 40. So I can pop that in there. So again, that next question in question 3 is wanting us to do fractions, changing those percentages to fractions in its simplest form. So again, we can do what we did before. The only difference here is we have already got fractions. So you can actually do this on your calculator again, but this might be something that you haven't actually seen before. So when I want a half, and I want to put a half over 100 in this case, what I can actually do is I can actually press my fraction button twice and then pop my half on the top and pop it over 100, and I end up with 1 over 200. And that's my answer for that one. So you can do that for most of these, okay? The other thing you could do if you didn't want to use your fraction button, so for example, if I have a look at G here, 5.5%, that's going to be 5.5 or 5.5 over 100. You could do it that way. Or if you wanted to use your fraction button, you could put in 5.5, which you've got the 5.5 you can pop up there. So there's various ways that you could do these questions. Now, when you get to 3, I want you to start thinking about talking to the person next to you and talking as a group at your table to see if you can come up with solutions and how to get those to the answer that we want. Okay, and we're going to have a look at those answers next lesson. Okay, so we can do that for question 4. I'm not going to work through 4. That's for you to use the information from above to see if you can work through that. Okay, let's keep moving on quickly. Okay, next one. Now, we've already got these over 100. So we said above that what we can do is we can interchange, I'll go back down there again. We can interchange the percent sign to the over 100 sign because they're the same. That's percent and that is per 100. So what I've got here is something that's per 100. So I can replace that 100 with a 30 and a percent. That's the same. So I can do those for all of question 1. Now for the second one, I don't have that out of 100, so I need to make it out of 100. Just backtrack a little bit because we didn't actually read the question. Express them as percentages. So I'm just going to highlight that there. Now, a lot of you probably know how to do this already, but I'm going to take you back to the last question and just show you something that you don't probably think you're doing. But when we're actually changing something to a percent, yes, we're changing it so that it's out of 100, but what we're actually doing is timesing by 100. So with the 30 over 100, what we're actually doing is saying we're going 30 over 100 times 100. And these hundreds, remember that we just did this in the last topic, that's like saying that's on the top line over 1. This 100 can cancel with this 100, and we end up with 30, and that's as a percentage. So if we use that method down here to change 5/10 to a percentage, I can just times by 100. So that should be tenths there. Times that by 100. You pop that in your calculator, or you can do that in your head there. That would be 50%. The other way you could have done this is probably the primary school way, where you can say, well, what do I do to 5/10 to make it out of 100? I times the bottom by 10, so I times the top by 10. So you've got a couple of methods there. But if you just do the method where I'm timesing each of these by 100, I'm not having to do too much manual thinking in that case. Now, I could do that same for question 3 and question 4. When I'm going to change things to a percentage, I'm going to times whatever I have by 100 and I will get my percentage. So that will allow you to work through those ones. We're nearly there. Changing percentages to decimals. Okay, so the decimal is just another way of showing our percent or showing our number. So let's have a look and highlight the main parts of this question. So what we want to do is we want to show the following percentages as decimals. So you could probably do this in your head as well, but we have a calculator. These ones I probably would do in my head. For 10%, I want to write that as 10 over 100. And the way that you probably would have been shown in primary school is you've got 2 zeros on the bottom line, and it's like the 10 has a decimal point at the end here. And so it's like 10.0. But if I wanted to move that decimal point and I look at how many zeros there are underneath it and I move that decimal point to the left, 2 numbers or however many zeros I've got 0.10. And that would be 10% as a decimal. But because we've got calculators, I'm going to throw my calculator up there. So if I was to pop 10 over 100 on my calculator and just press equals, I've got 1/10 there. That is how it would be as a fraction. But if I just press my F arrow D button, it does it for me. Okay, so that's how you're going to do these ones. So if you can do them in your head, you can. So you can probably quickly do these ones and the next lot. Okay, maybe not the bottom ones down here. Okay, so 5 over 100, pop it in your calculator, make it a decimal. Same for these ones. Because your calculators are pretty clever these days, you can either go, okay, move the decimal point over, I'm going to get 0.455, or 45.5 over 100, F arrow D, and that'll get your decimal. Okay. These ones might be a little bit harder. So see what you can come up with these, and we might talk about these in class next. But I think most of you should be fine with question 5 on those. Okay, last one. If you get up here, we're going fairly a large amount of work here. Okay, now we're kind of going backwards to what we were just doing. So if I highlight what we want to do again, okay, express the following decimals as percentages. Okay, so they are decimals. We want to get to percentages. So we're basically going to go and do backwards to part 3 up above. Quickly have a look at what we did up above. We were going to decimals, okay, and then we divided things by 100 up here, didn't we? We went divide by 100. Let me just get my pen fixed up. So the opposite is going to be timesing by 100. So when we're changing our decimals to percentages, we're going to be timesing by 100. So I can then think, well, there's 2 zeros in 100, which means I'm going to move my decimal point twice to the right, and I'm going to end up with 15%. Otherwise, you can pop it on your calculator. You could go 0.15 times 100, and that will get us 15, which is going to be our percent. I think lots of you are going to be able to do those ones in your head, because when you see the format of them, you're going to fly through those really quickly because you're probably used to those in primary school. The last couple, okay, you're still going to times by 100. We're just going to end up with numbers like 12.3% when we times by 100, or 68.7%. Down the bottom, you're going to get weird looking numbers. You're going to get 0.1%, so a very tiny amount. And when you go over to the last part in here, when you've got numbers that are over 1, you're going to end up with 120% or 250%, because this is 1.2 times 100%. So they're going to be probably things you might not be used to. So those are practicing things, okay, so that we can then look at the next few lessons after that, looking at percentages of quantities and decreasing and increasing and looking at some harder stuff. So you don't need me in the class today to work through these questions. You can do those yourself. The video's on the OneNote if you need to go back and have a look at that yourself. And I probably would suggest bringing in some headphones for the next couple of lessons so that we can have people working at different paces, and I'll pop some more videos up for you. Have a really super day, and don't forget, work as a team, work with the person next to you, work at your table, discuss things, okay? That's how you often learn the best in maths.